All right. So may I present Ms. Geron Carter?
I love going first. Oh, I remember her. I stopped in my tracks as I watched the past and her granddaughter take a seat in the front corner of the bakery. As the older woman took a bite of her cake donut, my memory flashed back 30 years. Things were different during those times, a time where one group was treated better than the other, a time where we were categorized by our status. My mom and I stopped by the bakery after a long day of shopping. I was so excited because for the first time, I get to try one of those fancy donuts and not the ordinary ones from the grocery store. We walked up to the counter, and before my mom opened her mouth, the cashier raised her hand and with a clipped voice said, "We don't serve your kind here." I didn't understand the word, but I saw my mom's face was a mixture of disgust and dignity. The old woman, who was much younger then, came from the back and wiped her hands on her apron. The smell of cinnamon, butter, and sugar permeated the air. She had kind eyes, but her face had a grave look. A conversation between the three women ensued, and they seemed to be locked in a heated battle. After an eternity, the conversation ended, and it seemed my mom and the kind lady won. The cashier's face looked annoyed, but defeated. As mom ordered the sweets, the cashier threw the pastries in the box, slammed down the lid, and plopped the order on the counter. Without batting an eyelash, my mom opened the box, counted the donuts, pulled out her platinum credit card, and placed it on the counter. The kind woman picked up the credit card, handed it back to my mom, and paid for our order herself. "Please, it's on me. Thank you for visiting and have a great day." The lady smiled at me as she handed me a cake pop. My mother cracked a smile. "Thank you. That is the first act of kindness we received in a long time."
This is the problem with Zoom. You can never hear all the applause, and there's so much. Geron, that is a beautiful piece. Thank you so much for writing it and sharing it. And I would remind everybody that that was written in a maximum of 10 minutes, probably 8, because generally I like 8. Powerful. Our next reader from Connecticut, I think, an Army guy, is Robert Liddy.
All right, well, first of all, I'm living in Florida, but I'm originally from Connecticut. But I got this from Dancing Twigs. When you guys showed me that, it was a very interesting thing. So I will read this. As the trees interact with one another, I'm only an oak tree, just an oak tree. My name is Jack. I talk to my neighbors when there are no humans around. They're quite close to one another. Nape is the name of the maple tree who I grew up with next to me, and with whom I have a close relationship with. It's against tree law to communicate with any human species, even if we comprehend them well and would like to be their friends. All the forest trees understand English, and we communicate with one another, and as well as through magic, as well as through the music. We utilize animals to deliver messages to the other trees. To speak with my oak tree, my companion, Sally, my branches must move to the wind to generate music, and how we communicate over that is how we communicate over long distances, because the wind does not always cooperate with us comrades. We seek alternative mode to communicate. I wish I had friends like, I wish I had my friend Sally live closer to me. Making friends with Roy, who relays messages to Sally, and it's beneficial for both of us. Last night, a man and his dog walked past. Well, he was texting his wife. They would have, he would be home for dinner tonight. And even the birds sleep on my branches. Nate and I will throw a party on the forest floor, making our twigs dance to the wind. Sally and I are looking for other oak trees and have just been, Sally and I are looking for other oak trees who've just been destroyed by development in our neighborhood. All we can do is produce more acorns and hopefully lead to growth of additional oak trees. We are not, we are allowed to contact animals, or we are allowed to contact animals under tree law, but we have mutual communication. We have a mutual communication relationship with them to deliver messages to other trees. All animals will be invited to the dance party and celebrate on Saturday night, because we have complete control over the forest floor without the presence of humans. My twigs are competing in the dance competition, and the birds will be deciding who wins. Who owns the forest? We own the forest for 200 years ago. We own the forest 200 years ago and watch as mankind developed the place into urbanization development, and is encroaching on large portions of our woodland. Human settlement will swallow us soon, since they are killing themselves over time, and many trees have vanished currently. Humans are the species capable of self-destruction, and at night I went to the forest to know that we own this place. At night, I want the whole forest to know that we own this place. Saturday night dance party will bring togetherness, and the humans will have no idea what's going on. In return, their regular routine will follow the next day. Nate talks eloquently, and the dance at this first time in 200 years, this dance is the first time in 200 years that a question for humanity is raised. This isn't the only area mankind has destroyed our lands. Many more forests have been having the same problems. Nate explains. We arrived first, and as the humans okay, here on Saturday night party, it's a political movement to figure out what we can do about these crazy humans. Many of these trees, including myself, agree that Nate, my next door neighbor, thinks differently, and the rest of the forest will elect him as the next leader. I won the dance competition, but actual purpose was gathering our days. Our days are numbered.
Thank you, Robert. Oh my gosh. I love the thought of the dance in the forest, all the dancing twigs doing their own thing. And you did such a good job of inhabiting a twig. Who knew when you started this class you were going to be a twig? Great job. Thank you. I know. Our next reader from, I know this one's for sure, from Louisiana is Ms. Tanya Whitney.
Tanya?
Traveling in style. The wheels on the bus go round and round. The song ran through my head as I sat on the decrepit Greyhound bus. The black smoke rose in the air as the engine started. An emission of oil and diesel choked my throat with a nasty taste of crude. I remember being a kid running up and down the railroad ties coated with creosote and smelling the same way. A smell that seeped into your taste buds, though a morsel never crossed your lips. The bus lurched forward, causing me to slide across the cracking vinyl seat. Half of it was repaired with duct tape already, so old it was flaking off. At least the bus was fairly empty. I swung around and put my legs on the seat once the engine settled into the rhythm of the road. The further we moved down the road, the air in the bus transformed. Now, instead of the smell and taste of oil and diesel, the bus smelled like the bodies of past riders. Odors that had seeped into the floors and walls of the bus from bits of food ground into the floor and the spill of sodas. Even a hint of unclean animals left out in the rain permeated. I tried to keep the bile in my stomach in place. Looking out the windows to concentrate on the passing landscape helped. The azure blue skies and emerald green fields took my mind off the horrible ride and acrid smells. It didn't last long, however. As the miles passed, the dust and dirt of the less traveled roads rose and clung to the metal hulk hurling by. Slowly, the pane of glass turned to a sienna shade of brown. The landscape disappeared behind the haze like my life. There was nothing left behind and nothing to look forward to. All I knew at that point was my life had come full circle. The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round.
Thank you, Tanya. Wow. I remember that night. I think we had been talking a lot about using our senses, using our, and then I gave the prompt on the bus, and these were some smelly buses. I remember everybody was using their nose that night. Tanya, thank you so much. I think that maybe our next reader coming from Chicagoland will be Luke Hopkins.
Too many people are outside. That was Mike's only thought as he reluctantly exited his apartment building onto the oak tree-lined street he'd known for decades. The thick thermal air pierced his aging skin, and he felt the first small bead of sweat begin traversing from the back of his neck down his hunched spine. The dark, heavy fabric of his utility pants and button-down shirt only made the sweating worse, but would save him the embarrassment of looking like a human puddle. Down the block, a couple of kids were yelling at the playground while nameless pedestrians walked this way, that way, going nowhere. Mike desperately wished to turn around and return to the comfortable confines of his one-bed condominium. Each passerby ignited within him a deep dread, and each pulse of his heart was a thunderclap. He moseyed southward toward the hospital, the budding oak trees reaching toward the heavens, competing with the adjacent high-rises. He continued contemplating whether it was appropriate for him to be visiting his ailing brother, whom he hadn't spoken to in 5 years, as he laid on his deathbed just a half-mile from Mike's condo. He had gotten a call from a doctor the day prior. Jeff's had a massive stroke, the doctor said, followed by a string of words that Mike couldn't comprehend other than the mentioning of, "You should get here as soon as you can." They had been best friends once, in what seemed like another lifetime. When their father passed, disagreements over the estate, which were at first amicable, soon soured, pushing the relationship to a breaking point. And for what, Mike said to himself, trying to distract his anxious mind from the city stimulus. Finally, Mike turned a corner and saw the hospital campus, his heart beating faster and faster. A rush of cold air swept down on him as he entered the main building, and he shivered violently. He made his way to the receptionist saying, "I'm here for Jeffrey Harris." The receptionist stared at her computer silently for a few seconds before letting out a half-hearted, "Floor 7. Mike got in the elevator and took a moment to try to catch his breath. He was always good at shielding his nerves. Another reception area awaited him, though no one was there. He stood at the desk looking around for what felt like an hour. Finally, a young doctor reviewing a clipboard walked by. "Hey, doctor, do you know where I can find Jeffrey Harris?" "What's your relation?" the doctor asked. "I'm his brother." The doctor grimaced. "Have a seat." And as the doctor explained how they did everything they could, Mike's attention meandered toward a window down the hall over the city above the trees. Thank you.
Oof, oof, oof.
Oh,
Powerful writing, Luke. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Gosh. I know, I'm with Cornelia. Good writing. I think that our next reader is Gabby Springer from Washington State.
Yes, from Washington State. Wow, there sure are a lot of books here, she said to the lady who was smiling at her from behind the counter. Yes, there are. This is a library. A library? Asked Jenny. She had never been to a library in all of her 12 years. What do you do with all these books? Well, you can pick one or two and take them home, read them, and then when you bring them back, you can take a couple more. Haven't you ever been to a library, child? No, ma'am, but Mama talked about them. Why don't you go find yourself some books? Jenny walked up and down the long aisles, looking at the titles of the books. She imagined what they might be about. Mama taught her how to read, but after Mama went to heaven to be with Papa, there was no more time for reading. Jenny's daddy died before Jenny even knew about him. Mama struggled to keep food on the table for both of them, but there just wasn't much work for a widowed woman with a child. School was too far to walk, and Mama didn't want Jenny walking there alone. Jenny and her mother lived on a small piece of land that her father had bought up in the hills of Tennessee. He had great plans, but he got sick and then he lost his job. There was no money left by the time he died. Jenny learned to cook and clean and keep the little house in order so Mama could sew and take in laundry. Mama would walk all the way to the mining camps way up in the hills and bring the miners' laundry back. Then they would wash and hang the clothes on the line together. Mama even let her help with the ironing. She was very careful not to burn any of the shirts. At night, though they were tired, Mama and Jenny sat together and read. Mama taught her the alphabet, and soon Jenny could read some of the books that they had. Jenny loved to read the books, and she read them over and over again. Mama told her about libraries, but Jenny couldn't imagine them then. After Mama died, Jenny had to go to live with Mama's brother, Uncle Mike, in the big city. Jenny missed Mama very much, and she wished she could share all the new adventures she was having. She would finally be able to go to a real school and go to a library. All the book titles on the shelves sounded exciting. The Little House on the Prairie, The Children of the Soil, A Story of Scandinavia. Jenny had never heard of a place called Scandinavia and wondered what the children there were like. She would take that book home with her and dream of going there one day.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. That was to the prompt at the library. And you never know what people, we were talking about this prism that comes out of one little thing. I'll say pencil, and somebody's writing about this aspect of a pencil or this aspect. This at the library took people in so many different directions. I particularly liked Gabby's. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And our final reader tonight is writing to the prompt. I always like to celebrate the wacky holidays, and we had National Honesty Day last week. It was an important date, and so I gave the prompt, the protagonist has to tell the truth no matter what, and this is what came up from Bonnie Rosensteel in Texas.
Oh, my document disappeared.
Oh dear.
Sorry, I have it. Jesus said we're all the same, and because of that, we cannot place blame. But what about the guy who stole my lunch? Jesus said, it doesn't matter, we're of the same bunch. The guy who has more is easy to score than the one that is poor. In the end, we're each a mirror. We have to see, and if you don't, your fruit is of a different tree. lost to the void and won't seed the ground. It doesn't bear fruit. Its song has no sound. The truth is that reality for each of us is unique. We each have our own perspective, but it is also multidimensional and tied in a matrix. Control is a poison and plays its own tricks on the player who attempts to control and bestow his own will on the soul of another whose path is singular and originates from the mother. The truth depends on who walks the path. An experience is shaped by your birth on the map of time and soil. Your truth is yours. Mine is mine. The truth is a juice from the fruit of the vine. Have you swallowed the drink?
It is astonishing to me that something that heady and poetic can come up in, I think, 8 minutes, Bonnie, right? I don't think that was a 10 even, probably 8. And that's what happens in 8 minutes. It's an extraordinary thing to watch. Guys, I have so enjoyed hearing your voices this semester. It has been a real treasure for me and something that I looked forward to every Sunday. The evening would come and I'd just kind of hunker down and let you guys have at it. It was fun. It was neat. And I encourage you from the bottom of my bottom, as my friend says, to keep writing, please, and to be courageous. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, Bonnie says she's learned so much from all of us. It was a very special time. Thank you. Andrea?
Yeah, just thank you, Allison, for teaching this class. Thank you, each of you, for participating. What I appreciate most, about these classes is that total strangers can become very, very well acquainted with each other in just a matter of time. And you let down boundaries and allow yourself to be vulnerable, take a risk, and just be human. And I just think you were all wonderful. I'm so glad that I got to participate in the class last week. So glad I got to be here tonight and meet you, Luke. And I'm sorry that Robert stepped out because he's going to miss the conclusion. But thank you all again for participating. The ASAP challenge coin will appear in your mailbox in just a few weeks. And please do go to our website and see classes and workshops we have coming up, asap.org. I check all of the applications, so if I see your name, I'll remember you. If I don't see your name, I'll also remember. But I do hope to see you all again sometime soon. Have a wonderful evening and a lovely month of May.